We have 10 slides. I'm going to go through the agenda is tell you a little bit about globalization, where everything is heading, at least in our opinion. I'm going to tell you the difference on the type of work you can be doing and the type of work that should be outsourced. I'll give you some tips on how we do things. Hire Once and Forever, that's another one of our companies that's in charge of our own hiring and recruiting and training. It was always there. I mean, we've had it for many years. We just never promoted it until recently. Let's jump into it. Some facts about year 2000. Outsourcing was more of just a trend. It wasn't really something that everybody was doing. Only big companies were doing. Mostly blue collar jobs, like manufacturing jobs, were being outsourced. The industrialization brought America to the number one spot globally, but then we lost it in 2010 to China because of all the outsourcing that we gave to China. America, as far as internet penetration, is number 19. Some people think that we have the fastest internet, but we actually do not. This is in year 2000, by the way, so I think we dropped in rank even further by now. Skype and Ring Central. Well, there was no Ring Central in the year 2000, and Skype was just starting out. It was very unstable in the year 2000, so we couldn't really connect well with people in India and Philippines on the white collar jobs. FiOS was just getting rolled out, only available in big cities. The Philippines, for example, did not really have stable internet. It was there, but not everybody had it. According to the world, internet was still sort of new. This is just the beginning, of Google, and the computers were very expensive. This is year 2000, and if we jump to year 2014, virtually everything is outsourced. Forrester Research estimates that there's going to be 3.3 million jobs moved offshore in a year from now. We have third world countries that have faster internet than most, well, not most, but many communities in the US. You can get computers at commodity prices. You could do outgoing calls and SMS for free. China recently, this was in the news, that this year they're going to overtake the number one position over US in e-commerce sales. I've been also sort of like ignoring the fact that China e-commerce is growing, and we finally got to the point where they're going to outgrow the US e-commerce market this year, which is crazy. If we're looking at the amount of people that's going to be in the globalization workforce, there's more honor students in India than there's kids in America, which kind of, when you take India and China, and once everybody gets online, everything is going to just flatten out as far as talent. It's going to be even harder to get a job for somebody who's graduating college. The globalization, I mean, it's already here. It's not something that's a trend anymore, and it's only going to get bigger. You got college graduates, so even some of the, I guess, not like my friends' brothers and sisters who are younger than them, who are just graduating college. Sometimes they ask me, or sometimes I hear that they're looking for a job. They can't even get a minimum wage job. The job that they were, learning to do in college, they can't find it even at minimum wage. The question is, what's going to happen in 15 more years? It's probably going to be even bigger than it is now, which is something not to ignore. And moving forward, it's probably going to really level out, where this is probably going to become where we're going to lose the number one position in everything, and eventually the balance will shift where we become the China and China becomes the America. Potentially, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it could happen based on the trends. So that's some of the facts about globalization, so something that we should not ignore. And obviously, those that are ignoring it, and most clients that I speak to that sign up for our shopping cart, they're just looking into outsourcing. They haven't really perfected it. They haven't really done anything with it. It's not late. Well, it's late compared to if you are looking at 10 years ago, but if you're looking at what's ahead, this is perfect timing to consider it right now and not yesterday. This is what some of the things that you can spend time on. I wrote an article recently about this, so I'll just kind of touch on it. This is what you can be doing on a daily basis, what your staff can be doing on a daily basis, and this is regardless if you're outsourcing or if you're doing things domestically. 4 types of activities. Wasted time, reading news, watching YouTube videos, browsing Facebook. Reactive time, this is everything that should be automated. Our slogan in Shopping Cart Elite is automate everything in 30 days. The idea behind it is that anything that's considered reactive work, like inventory recount, processing orders, reading emails, cleaning emails, automating price updates, all this stuff, which is a repetitive work that's done over and over again, should be automated by a piece of software. It shouldn't be done by a human, and if there needs to be a human involved, it should be on a very light basis, meaning like they should be using software to do that task. They shouldn't be doing anything by hand. Active time is something that you do that You have to do it in order to progress the company, but it doesn't really relate to increasing revenue overall. So it's not really wasted time, it's not really reactive time, but it's something that doesn't really improve your position in the company. So it doesn't improve your revenue, it doesn't improve your customer service. Let's say if somebody talks to a customer on the phone and provides this amazing customer service, they are spending their time on active time because it's not really reactive because it's different every single time, but it's just because you help the customer today doesn't mean your revenue is going to ultimately increase tomorrow. It's something you have to do, active time. Now, the active time is what all your staff should be doing. So as a CEO of the company, you have to make sure that your staff is focused on active time only, and wasted time is not even in the picture because you enforce it to make sure it doesn't happen, and reactive time is automated. So in other words, if you have staff right now doing reactive work instead of active work, you're only hurting your own company. And usually the way this becomes like a ripple effect is if they're spending reactive time most of the day, you're probably doing active time because you're doing things that they can't do, and you have no time for proactive time. So proactive time is directly related to brainstorming, implementing new systems, increasing revenue. It could be either marketing or operations. Usually the way I describe proactive time is if you go to any executive of a big company, Yahoo or Google, you're not on the same level as the executive because let's say he's making $20 million a year and you're making $50,000. So you're not really sure what he does, right? Like, what do you do there that you make $20 million? Can you explain that to me? So if you ask him and he's not going to go into detail and he's going to try to summarize what he does, his answer to you is going to be like, I don't do much. I just sit at my desk and I look at my computer. And sometimes I meet people and sometimes we talk with colleagues. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And I get $20 million a year. And you might look at it and you might say to yourself, like, are you kidding me? I work so hard to make my $50,000 or whatever, $100,000, and you sit there behind a desk making $20 million and you're complaining. Now, this is how we see it because we don't know what they're doing, but what they're actually doing the whole day, every single day, is they are focused on proactive time. So they're sitting there, they're not physically working with their hands, they're not physically doing stuff, but they're thinking physically, and their thinking as well as their decision making is what drives the company. It's what drives the next step of the company, which then drives the revenue either up or down, and they're strategizing, right? Their work is to think and make the right decisions for the company, because if you make the wrong decision, the whole company collapses, and if you employ 20,000 people, well, they all lose their job. In order for you to be able to think proactively, in order for you to actually do this type of work, you cannot physically work. I mean, think about it. You can't be distracted copying invoices and doing emails and talking to customers on the phone and doing all these things and still have enough time as well as the state of mind to really think proactively about your business and brainstorm and come up with systems or read a book about a system or whatever the case may be. So bottom line is, most entrepreneurs, the reason why they don't grow their business, the reason why they get stuck in a certain point in their business is because they're stuck in this active and reactive time inside their business, and they don't understand why they're there because they don't have time to try to figure out why they're there. The reason why you're there, I'm answering that for you, is because you are not dedicating any time to proactive time and you're strictly busy with reactive and active, and chances of you growing is going to be very slim. The next question is, what kind of job are you doing, right? So reactive time is like data entry, customer service. This job can be done for like $3 to $5 an hour. If you're doing that job, or if you have a staff member doing that job at a higher rate, one of the two things, right? You're either losing money because you hired somebody at double or triple the rate that you can. Instead of that money coming into your pocket, you're giving it to your employee, and that's great that you're employing them, but at the end of the day, you're trying to have ends meet, but your employee is making the money, and it's not that much money if you really think about it, so nobody really makes the money at that point. If you're doing that job, well, you just gave yourself a $5 an hour job. Why are you working at $5 an hour? McDonald's pays $8 an hour minimum wage. Just go work there if that's what you want your job to be. So the first thing you got to understand is you have to come to that realization that you are doing a $3 an hour job. Once you come to that realization, things are going to change in your head that you should stop doing it, and eventually you'll stop if you keep telling that to yourself. You can do active work. So active work is, again, this is more for retailers, of course, like business to business or software, it's higher, but for retailers, $7 to $12 is usually the rate that you can outsource someone, and sometimes you can hire someone at that rate domestically, which is great. But if you get someone overseas at this rate, usually you're getting a person that would cost you 3 to 4 times more domestically. Instead of getting a minimum wage to do the selling for you, you can get like a superstar executive to do the selling for you. It's not easy to find them, but ideally you could get someone that good that's going to be closing sales left and right with perfect American accent and $7 an hour. Proactive time, this is again, can you outsource these jobs? These are the pay rates for outsourcing these jobs. So you could get an employee or a project manager that's going to check on employees, assign tasks, like a manager that's going to do a decent job. These are more on the high-end rates. You could get somebody at $3 an hour and train them for the next few months and eventually have them work for you for $3 to $5 an hour. But if you want to get someone immediately to work at that rate, these are basically the rates. It comes down to the fact that, look, you can get proactive time, you can hire an executive, and let's say you pay him $20 an hour, $30 an hour, but you're the executive, right? Why would you hire an executive and then you get stuck in a reactive job? The idea is you have to have an executive job and everybody else in the company should do all these other tasks. So this is how you're going to kind of shift everybody's position in the company. You'll try to make more time for yourself to have more proactive time and push people who are doing reactive time to active time and eventually automate this if possible. This is my recommendation for a CEO. I try very hard to stick to the schedule myself. This is considering you're putting in 50 to 100 hours a week. 15 hours should be on active time. 20 hours should be proactive with a team. So this is you meeting with a team to brainstorm new ideas, new systems, helping your different teams succeed in their area, giving them advice and so on. 35 hours is proactive time alone, so you thinking by yourself on what can be improved, listening to an audiobook on whatever can be improved, hiring people. That's very important to basically find the right people to put into your team. I think that's probably the most important. If you keep hiring people to take on certain tasks, you might think of it as doing active time, but eventually once you fill that position, that person starts bringing in revenue to your company, so technically you did proactive time. And finally, you need to relax because a lot of times you go through the whole day without even having lunch, and that's not very healthy. So you should make sure that you have that 1 hour per day where you can just relax or go for a lunch. Now, if you're a small company, you're just starting out, one person, and you don't have a team, well, instead of spending 20 hours with your team, you should spend 20 hours trying to find people for your team or implementing something for your future team. Why does outsourcing fail? Usually, these are some of the reasons that over the years I found. You try to hire someone to do everything, it doesn't work. You're never going to find a person like that. You hire a project manager to do a regular job. Usually when you hire a manager that says that he knows everything, they will not do a very good job. And I'll get into that in a second. I'm actually going to deep dive on some of these things. I don't want to touch the why you fail too much. I just want to kind of give you some pointers on why it could fail. You can hire someone and ignore them. So sometimes you hire somebody and just say, hey, go do this and leave them on their own. Usually what I say about hiring new staff, unless they're experienced, in most cases they're not going to be, you're basically dealing with a 6-year-old. If you teach them how to do it, eventually, over time, they'll get good at it. Or even a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old who's just trying to learn how to walk. You can't just put him on his feet and say, go walk. You're going to have to stick around long enough to have him walk really well and then let him walk by himself. So some people have these wrong expectations on what they're going to get. Immediate results never happens. You hire somebody, you should expect that there will be like almost no productivity for like the next month, if not longer than that. Sometimes people ask somebody to do a job before even offering them a job. So, hey, go do a sample for me and I'll see how you perform. So that usually never works out. I have a lot of articles on what to watch out for as far as outsourcing and where outsourcing can fail. But let me kind of deep dive on some of the things we do in our company and how we were able to make it work. Now, keep one thing in mind as far as with our company. I started doing outsourcing 2007. It was probably 2 very miserable years because I had no idea what I was doing, and outsourcing was still very new. I even remember one of my shocking events was we just rolled out screenshots inside the Shopping Cart Elite where we can record screenshots to see what people are doing, and I didn't tell that to the Oversea staff. We had 2 people at that time, and I realized that that staff member was watching a movie. Literally, she was watching a 3-hour movie and billing the hours for that. There was a lot going on, so it took a long time to really perfect it. We probably went through hundreds, not 100, but at least 100 people before nailing down our systems in place. And I can see why somebody who has a classic organization where they have a physical location, and for them to go remote is like a suicide, because it's not that simple to just go remote and then it just works. So let me give you the pros of having a remote company versus a classic company. As far as our company, we have 70 overseas staff in our company at the moment. They're all managed through our small office. This is the pros. So talent, we are able to find affordable talent and put them in the right seat in the company. I did an estimate that if we were to hire all the overseas staff that we have today domestically, our payroll would be around $5 million a year, which this is impossible for us to afford that much in payroll. So our company would not be able to be what it is today, which is why a lot of our competitors are kind of confused on how we're able to do what we do and offer the prices that we do and still keep up with development and customer service and do the migrations and do all these things while they're trying to run after their tail the whole day. And of course, we also have our own problems that we are constantly trying to work out, but the bottom line is that we're scaling faster than they are with a lot less customers than they have. The reason why that's happening is because the payroll that would have cost us $5 million a year is probably 10% of that on an annual basis. We're not talking about just people that don't know what they're doing. We're talking about the right person at the right seat. I mean, some people, of course, are not in the right seats, but it's evolving. So eventually we do put them in the right seats. Another company that was successfully implementing this whole thing is RingCentral. They actually went public, and that whole company was literally, I think there was only like 10 staff in their main office and thousands of staff overseas, and they were able to pull it off. It's a public company now, RingCentral. Talent, getting talent, it's no longer an excuse. Like, you can't make an excuse saying, I wish that we had affordable talent, right person in the right seat in our company. It is possible, right? As long as you say it's possible, it can happen. The second that you say it's impossible, or I don't know how to do it, or I don't want to do it, then you're never going to get to that point. So it's possible that there is talent. I want to touch one last thing on talent. When you are looking for domestic talent in your local area, the problem is, let's say you need a web designer in your local area. Let's say your city has a population of, 50,000 people or 100,000 people. By the time you nail down all the potential candidates that are actually looking for a job, available, web design, willing to work for you at your salary, out of 100,000 people, you might be only left with like 5 candidates, if you even find them, right? How do you find 5 people out of 100,000? Then when they do come to work for you, you should expect to pay them premium rate, right? 25 an hour or more. And they're going to give you an attitude. They're not going to do a very good job because they know that you're depending on them and you have no other choice. I speak to clients all the time that are in that position. They have not such a great worker, and they're paying 4 to 10 times the rate that they could get a worker overseas, only if they said that it's possible for us to go from classic organization to a remote organization. So just keep that in mind. Productivity, we track productivity and activity while keeping employees happy. So how do we do that? Well, all of our employees obviously work from home, especially overseas, right? They all work from home. So on their breaks, they get to see their kids. They can actually have a homemade meal. They can take a nap if they want to, if they're on their break. Most of them don't take naps, but I guess they can if they want to. If they need to travel, for example, our art director, Nate, he moved from Slovenia to Germany. He travels between Slovenia and Germany whenever he wants to see his family. He can work at a cafe. He can work at home. He can get offered a job right now that's going to pay double the rate locally, and he's not going to take it because of the flexibility that he has, that he can go anywhere he wants while still getting paid what he wants. Now, tracking productivity, we have a lot of tools. I'll just give you some of them. So one of them is RescueTime, rescuetime.com. And we use that one to actually measure productivity, like literally, how productive is the worker. Now, if you were to implement that in your local office, people are going to be looking at you weird because it's kind of invasive and it's kind of disrespectful that why are you looking at what I'm doing? if you actually implement some policies to be more productive like we do, we actually have policies in place where we don't pay you if you're not productive, or you're going to get fired if you're not productive. If you tell that to your local employee who already has an attitude, they're going to quit on you right at the spot. And if they don't quit on you, once you implement those policies, they're probably going to tell you, give me a raise or I'm quitting, because I can, work at a different company at a less stressful environment. But when you're talking about millions of people who want the job that you just hired somebody for overseas, they're willing to keep it at whatever it takes. Plus the fact that they work at home and they get to see their family and so on, they're definitely going to want to keep that job. Tools like Rescue Time, Odesk screenshots, we have screenshots in Shopping Cart Elite. All of these are tools that you can use to track productivity so you know exactly what somebody is doing. Now, it's hard. I'll use myself as an example. On the left-hand side of me, I have 4 laptops. I have my executive assistant. I have my senior tech. I have one of the guys that does marketing. And I have another PC in case I need to train somebody. And somebody's always using it if I need them to do something for me. So I have these PCs. They're laptops with webcams. They have TeamViewer, teamviewer.com turned on. So the way all of our remote staff works is we actually have 70 PCs for all of our staff. We don't have them work on their PCs. It all started off with their PCs are slow to be productive, because even if they use Shopping Cart Elite with their internet, which is okay, the actual PC itself, it's not. We give them a faster PC, their productivity level increases times 2, maybe times 3. So for us to buy a $400 laptop, we'll get our money's worth in a month because they're able to be 2 times or 3 times more productive. So I have these PCs, and what they're required to do is if they want to get paid, they have to log into the PC. If they work from their own PC, they don't get paid. The PCs run Rescue Time, and they have to log into Shopping Cart Elite to do the screenshots because not everybody's on Odesk from our company. Screenshots are being used in order to pay them, so that's how we track activity. Rescue Time is used for our manager meetings to see how each department, how productive they are, and what can we improve that they're doing. But why do I have these PCs with TeamViewer? Because every staff logs in, and I can see what they're doing, especially during training sessions, like for the first month or 2 months. This is like having an invisible person in my office. So think about it for a second. I have 4 people who are completely in different parts of the world, right? Philippines, India, Asia, Europe. They are in my office with me, right? If they need to talk to me, on TeamViewer, there is a button to talk to me. Like literally, it's like a walkie-talkie. They can just press a button and talk to me if they need to. Now, usually I tell them not to talk to me because I don't want them to distract me. If I give them permission to talk to me because I'm training them or whatever, let's say I'm training them, I press the button to talk to them. I tell them something and I mute myself and I tell them to get back to me once you are ready, for the next step. So he works for an hour. And then he just unpresses the mute button, and he talks to me. So he literally talks to me. It's like a talking laptop. It's like an invisible person next to me. Now, if we need to actually have a conversation together, he turns on the webcam. So I have a webcam on my laptop, and he has a webcam, so we can actually talk to each other as if he's in my office. So I have 4 people in my office that are not physically in my office. They're invisible people. I see what they're doing, so it's the same thing as if I'm turning my head and I can see what they're doing at any given time. So I know that they're working. I see if they're making mistakes. It's perfect. I actually feel like I have 8 extra hands, and I can finish my 300-hour work week in 50 hours because I have these people. If I didn't have these laptops and I didn't have these people next to me, I wouldn't be able to do what I do every day. I try to focus on proactive time as much as I can. It's possible because I have these 8 extra hands next to me. The other thing that I do is I'm not always on my computer. I'm walking around the office or I have to go somewhere, whatever. So I have my mobile phone, right? I have my iPhone. I have an app called WhatsApp on my mobile phone. I have Skype installed, obviously, but Skype is super busy. I try not to pay attention to it as much because it's very overwhelming. I have 2 Skypes actually running. One is company Skype, one is team Skype, and even the team Skype can get overwhelming. So I have WhatsApp. WhatsApp is people that are strictly, they report to me. So my executive assistant, for example, has a WhatsApp on her phone, and I have a WhatsApp. Now, what's cool about WhatsApp is it's like SMS messages, except it works like 10 times faster, because SMS, you send it and you wait 10 seconds until the second person, the next person gets it. On this one, it goes instantly. In fact, when I press the send button, they already got it. That's how fast it is. Plus, I can see if they read my message or not. So this way I know if they acknowledged it or not without them saying that they acknowledged it. And what's cool about that is if I need something, I can just take my phone and I can just text my executive assistant in India, and they just do things. And then they just come back to me with questions or whatever. So in other words, I don't have to be in front of my computer to control the staff. So I have my phone on my right-hand side. If I need to leave somewhere, the staff comes with me. If I'm at the office sitting at my desk, my staff that report to me are next to me on the laptops. Very, very convenient. I mean, it took some time for me to get this many laptops and get the WhatsApp and get the TeamViewer working and get this whole thing organized, but there's some days where I get frustrated because they can't understand what I'm trying to explain them to do, but overall, I think this is really, really good for me. And I did run a company before Shopping Cart Elite with 50 staff, domestic staff, and honestly, those staff were not any better than these staff as far as learning curve of doing things, which means there's really no difference between hiring domestic or hiring overseas if you have a setup like what I just explained to you. Laptops next to everybody. Now, let's jump here for a second. Let's say you have 5 people in your company. You have this office, so you have this classic organization right now. Let's say that your worker's name is John. What if I told you, why don't I give John another 2 hands? Literally, I'm going to attach 2 hands to him with another head to his body for $3 or $5 an hour. Do you see John being more productive if that happens? And is it worth it to you? The answer is yes. We'll just get John a laptop and get an overseas staff, and you just gave John 2 more hands. That's really how it works. If John can be replaced because you want to fire him anyway because he's an a-hole, then you could get a laptop, have John teach the overseas staff how to do John's job, and then John can get fired after that. And then you take that laptop from John and you put it next to you, and now you have John next to you who's invisible. You don't need to see his face anymore. You actually get a productive worker at 2 or 3 times less than what you were paying John. And this applies to not a customer service worker, this could be a graphic designer or whoever you need. That's as far as productivity. Savings, self-explanatory, right? I'll just give you the ratio for the savings. Let's just take the minimum. It's a 4 times the ratio, which means that whatever you're going to pay the staff overseas, just multiply that amount by 4, and that's what it's equivalent to in the US. So if you pay somebody $5, it's equivalent to you paying $20 to a staff domestically. You pay $3 to overseas, it's the same thing as paying $12 domestically. That's the ratio. So you can do the math yourself. The minimum is 3, so you can't really divide it by 4. Like, you got to start at 3 because nobody's going to keep the job if you pay less than 3. But 5 is a good number. I mean, like, once you have somebody at $5 an hour overseas, you're not going to lose them. And that's why I always advertise a $5 an hour, because this way it's a stable worker and they're going to stay with you for a while. Growth, unlimited scaling. So January 2013, I think we were 12 staff members, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. 3 months later, we were 25. And I think we kept growing at that rate. I think we kept growing at 15 new people every 3 months. We kind of cooled down the hiring 4th quarter of last year because we were trying to stabilize our systems because we hired too many people and we didn't have systems in place. And I'll touch on systems in a second. But now that we do have systems in place, we're about to start hiring again. It's possible for our company to get to like 100, 200 employees. And what's cool about it is if we were doing this domestically, we would not be able to scale this fast because we would need to buy office space and we would need to figure out insurance and payroll and benefits and activities and all these other things, which we don't need to do at all with remote staff. That's a big pro for scaling if you want to grow your company. And the final thing is, I call it freedom. So yes, we are owners of our businesses and you're the CEO of your company, but you're really a slave if you really think about it. Like, think about it for a second. You have to get up in the morning, get in the car, drive to your warehouse, look at your 4 depressing walls because you need a warehouse in order to sustain your business. You spend 100 hours in your business per week. You barely get to see your family. Again, this doesn't apply to everybody, but if you're a new company or you're trying to grow your company, you're probably booking that many hours. You're really a slave to the company. And even if you work from home, like I know we have some clients that actually work from home, even if you work from home, if you're doing reactive work and active work, and you wake up and you're like, I really don't want to do this today, but I have to do it, otherwise my company collapses, you're sort of a slave to yourself. Not to yourself, but your business. The idea here is by focusing on a remote organization versus a classic organization, you could really reverse that or make a hybrid. We have a hybrid, but we're more of remote than classic because we have an office in New Jersey, and I personally only go there once a week. We go there for meetings if we need to. There's only 10 of us, and only 5 of us even go to that office. Everybody else works at our home offices. If anything, we're more remote, even though we have an office. But in our office, we have PCs where the staff logs in. So like the data staff would log into those PCs. They're not laptops, they're actually regular computers that they log in just so they can have fast processing CPUs to do whatever task they need to do. The laptops really play a role when you need somebody next to you because of the dynamic work that they do. It's active work, but it's different every time, so you need laptops in that case. If you're doing, I guess, active work, but it's more like a borderline active-reactive, you can just get regular PCs and let the staff log in, and using rescue time and Odesk screenshots or shopping cart lead screenshots, they can be accountable for what they do. So that's as far as freedom. Now, the next question is, what should you do? Just to kind of recap on what we said, we know globalization is taking over. In 15 years, the landscape completely changed. It's not a trend anymore. It's actually heading towards that direction where everything is moving offshore. You definitely don't want to be in a position where your competitor moves his operation offshore and you don't, and then you get hit by surprise, like what the hell just happened. We went over the different types of tasks that you can be doing, rates that you can be paying for those tasks, what your hours should look like, why something might fail, which I'm going to cover right now, and the pros to being a remote organization versus a classic organization, which is a true brick and mortar. And before we move on from this slide, one of the other things I wanted to say about freedom is sometimes you have a warehouse because you need it, right? You need a warehouse to do fulfillment. There are warehouses that can do fulfillment for you, which means you don't physically have to go to the warehouse. And if you do the math, what are you paying rent plus office space plus your staff to be in that place versus what would the fulfillment cost you? The price, is not much different, except the pro that you get is you can unslave yourself. You don't have to go to that warehouse anymore. The example that I use a lot, and this kind of happened to me, well, not really. It happened to me except I didn't have kids at the time, so I just used kids as an example. It's the day before Christmas. The weather outside is just horrific, and your kids are asking you, hey, play with us. You need to do last minute shopping, and you get a phone call from the manager at the warehouse saying, oh my God, something just happened. You got to come here and solve this problem. Otherwise, the customers won't get their products, and the whole business is going to collapse tomorrow if you don't come here. So you have to make that decision to drag your butt out of the house, away from your family, get in the car, get in the morning, drive to the warehouse, and deal with this crap because you didn't have a good system in place for your warehouse. To avoid that situation, which maybe it happens more often than it doesn't, maybe the opposite, but bottom line is, as long as you say that it's possible to go remote, just 2 words. You don't have to go remote. Just keep saying to yourself, it's possible that I can go remote. It's possible, maybe not today. It's possible, maybe not tomorrow. But as long as you keep saying it to yourself, which is what I kept doing, I kept trying and trying and trying. If I gave up on it in 2007, I would never have what I have today with these laptops and these setups and the company we have today. We have 15 developers. I would not afford 15 developers domestically, I'm sorry. The developers that we have today, they would cost us at least $30 to $50 an hour domestically, and the developers that we have today are in the range of $7 to $15 an hour. Well, actually, the one that's $15 an hour would cost us more like $100 to $20 an hour domestically, because if he came here, that's he could get a job at that range. I've been in both classic and remote, and I'm telling you, remote is definitely worth it. I could go on vacation and take my staff with me. That's ridiculous. I can literally get 2 of my laptops and my phone, and my staff comes with me on vacation. And I can just spend 2 hours with them, and instead of spending my proactive time that I usually spend, I'll spend relaxing during that week on vacation while my staff is working for me. And I see what they're doing. That's priceless. What should you do to try to go remote? First of all, you want to write out all your tasks that you can possibly think of. Everything you can think of. Just put a paper, put a line across, left-hand side, everything you don't want to do that you're doing. On the right-hand side, everything that you wish you would be doing, or maybe you are doing that you love what you're doing. So 2 things. I don't like doing, and I do like doing. This includes everything that you don't even do because you don't have the time. Then you have to build a system for it. So what is a system? This is what it takes to build a system. Specify the result and the name of the system. So that's first part. Create a diagram for the system. I recommend using Lucid Chart to make a diagram. So lucidchart.com. It's like Google Docs meets Microsoft Visio, so you can create charts and then sync them to your Google Docs if you want to do that. Benchmarks. How are you going to measure, and who is going to measure if the system is working? Assign accountability, who is going to be responsible for that system? Determine the timing when the system should be working. You can just go through this list here. And finally, this is the action plan. So this is a physical document. Title, result statement, who's going to be in the positions, a diagram, benchmarks, a checklist, the standards that need to be followed, how it's going to be quantified, and these things are optional. So a system is something that you do. Everybody here has a system. All the owners of all the businesses have systems. They're all in your head. You do this every day. You come to work and you open up your emails and you are doing your emails in a certain way. By the way, I don't do my emails. Stephanie touches the emails because a lot of times the emails have some critical stuff that she needs to see. I actually stopped doing my emails altogether. I haven't checked my emails in a week. I probably should do that though, because I do check them once a week. It's not like I stopped doing my emails and that's it, and I don't answer my emails. I actually put a system together for Stephanie on how I do my emails. So this is what I do. This is what to look for. This is what to do if you get this. And it took like a month, I think, to come up with a system of how I do my emails, and I just handed it to her, trained her in case she has any questions, and she took over. And now I don't do my emails anymore. So this is what I'm talking about, a system that everybody has a system. You just have it in your head, and you need to put it on paper. Once you put it on paper, now it could be outsourced. If you do not put your system on paper, you will never outsource what you do, ever. Forget about it. I tried it, doesn't work. You have to make a system out of it. So on the Pinterest page, it's here. I also made a little chart here. Well, I didn't make it. I got it somewhere. So this is what happens if you don't have a system in place. Your business is out of control. And you might say, well, I need to get more sales to get it in control, right? I need more money to get it in control. Well, if your sales don't increase, then nothing changes. But if your sales do increase, your problems increase, so your business is still out of control. You will never get your business in control unless you have systems in place. You need to do that. The next question is, what does it take to build a system, right? So if you go to Hire Once and Forever and click Services and click on Hire Us, I put a link to a course right here. Click here to try the course for 30 days for free. If you go to that course, it will teach you how to build systems. It will help you a lot. It helped us a lot. And technically, you can finish it in 30 days if you have the time. If you don't have the time, take a year to finish it. Another thing is if you need help building a system, because we have over 120 systems at the moment in Shopping Code Elite. I think all of them were designed by me. That's what I used my proactive time over the year. So I have a lot of experience, especially with a remote company. So in other words, if you're trying to build a remote company and you want to plan it out and you want to reuse some of the systems we use and you just don't want to read it and just want to have us do it for you, at the moment I'm going to be doing it, but then I'll be training somebody else to show them what I do so they can take over. But it's not cheap, but you don't need to hire us for more than a few hours. So this is the rate if you need to hire us to plan it out for you and give you the systems and explain how to execute it. If you really want to do it and you have a big enough organization, then it might be worth it because then you don't have to do the research and you can just get us to show you what to do and that's it. If you're a small organization and you want to learn how to do it from scratch, just go here, click here to try the course for 30 days, try the course for 30 days. You need to create a plan for what you're going to outsource. It starts with a system. So it starts with everything that you do today on paper. Once you have it on paper, now you can see who should take it over. Maybe it's a domestic employee that should take it over. Maybe it's an overseas employee, but bottom line is somebody needs to take it over. The other thing is I said visit Hire Once and Forever and read through the website, specifically the Strategize section. Well, there's two sections I want you to read, and I'm going to just kind of touch on why I'd like you to read this. So first step is I'm saying read these two books. This book here, I talk about it in different blog posts. I don't know if anybody read it already. This book here changed our company. We were always 12 employees for like 3 years or 4 years. We started hiring once Traction came into place. Traction was sort of like the glue that glued the whole thing together. Everything that I ever knew about business and marketing and operations, Traction is what glued it together. If you don't read this and you don't have this implemented in your company, I really don't see how the company can function without it. And some companies do function without it, but you probably have a lot of fires going on if you don't have this. E-Myth, I love this book. This book introduced me to system building, actually. So this book was responsible for putting it in my face that you need systems and here's why and here's how to build them. So highly recommend these two. One of the systems, which is ownership versus accountability, I actually posted a video here so you can watch it. Second step is like, how does the systems work? Third step is the hiring process. This is the hiring process that we personally use for our company, and obviously we're using it for Hire Once and Forever. So this is the system that we use. And the fourth step is taking the tests, having your employees take the test. So one of the tests is called Myers-Briggs. We heavily implement it in our company. You can read more about it, but a quick summary on Myers-Briggs. You got 4 different types of people that you can possibly hire. You got workers, managers, visionaries, and leaders. So the leader is the one that leads the team, the worker is that does the work, manager who supervises, and visionary is who does all the thinking and brainstorming and so on. This will really tell you why certain people do certain things in your company. Before you hire someone, you could have them take a Myers-Briggs test and you can kind of predict if they will be able to do a good job in their position. We implemented it to the point where that's how I am able to shuffle people around into the right seat, because by understanding their behavior type, I can kind of foresee if they're able to handle certain tasks versus not handling them. So this is the test we use to prove to you that it works. I gave you a link to read the results about your personal life. You'll be probably shocked that it's dead on accurate. And obviously, if it's dead on accurate about you, it's probably going to be dead on accurate about your staff. These are the Myers-Briggs books that I use as a shortcut to tell me if the person will fit that position or not. So these 2 books is what I use. This book talks about how the person would fit into the organization, and this book here talks about how the person would fit into the team based on his Myers-Briggs behavior type. Now, we do offer hiring service where you can ask us to find a person for you and recruit the person. Technically, if you have a system in place and you show us what that system looks like and you say, I want a person that will do that. And by the way, sometimes people come to us and say, I need a person to do data entry. There is no system in place. I mean, we use our system, fortunately. Like if you're using Shopping Cart Elite, we say, okay, here is a system that you should use for data entry. But a lot of times you come in and you say, I need somebody to do this particular job. But there's no scope, there's no description, there's no system in place. So how is that job supposed to be done if it's in your head? It has to go on paper. But assuming that you do have it on paper and you give it to us and saying, here's the job that I need done successfully, tell me how much and how long it's going to take, we can just use our knowledge about the subject of Myers-Briggs and use our recruiting process to get you the right person. We had the rates over here, but basically the rates are like $5 an hour. It's on the slightly higher end than what you can get yourself. You can get somebody at $3 an hour theoretically through Odesk, but then you'll have to go through the training and recruiting process and making sure they're the right fit. So if you want somebody to do that for you and keep building your team for you, we charge just a little, like a commission. Instead of $3 or $4 an hour, it's $5 an hour. So this is the stuff that I recommend. Finally, if you do need the help from us, this is the 4 things that we specialize in. So we can help you transition from a classic to a remote company. We can help you build systems. If you just don't want to build it and you have no clue, we can help you build them. Again, you can Skype me directly and talk to me. We already hire, recruit, and train staff for ourselves. So if you need somebody, we can do that. And we started implementing marketing systems. We're doing it for ourselves, but since they are working, we roll them out to others. So at the moment, we have a social media optimization system. It's under Hire Once and Forever. It's also available on Shopping Cart Elite's website. It's a little bit more descriptive under social media management. And there's a video explaining how that works. There's a bunch of articles, how the system works. We actually disclose how that system works and how we do it in case you want to do it yourself. But if you don't want to do it yourself, you could hire us to do it for you. This is the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, you can post it. I'll be happy to answer them for you. You can post it in the chat. I'll give you guys a few minutes. If you don't have any questions and you want to consider using this service, go to hireonceandforever.com. There's a contact us form there. If you want to try to implement it yourself, on hireonceandforever.com, there's a blog that I started posting some of the advice on how to do certain things. Go to these articles to read them. These are some of the older articles that I posted, but I compiled them all together on this particular website. So the question is, what about security of outsourcing, giving people access to your system? Let me give you a few scenarios on how we do the development side, because obviously developers have access to the source code. We install LogMeIn on the computer first. It used to be free. I believe they discontinuing the free version now, unless you have LogMeIn Central. LogMeIn Central is basically $100 a year, I believe, and then you can deploy as many free LogMeIns as you want. LogMeIn is a way to log into your computer remotely. You can log in to your computer through your mobile phone, through the iPad, and so on. So first I do LogMeIn. This way I don't have to access the computer if it's in a remote location. Then I install TeamViewer. The remote staff gets TeamViewer's access, and you can set up an unintended access on it. Now TeamViewer, one of the things that you can set on the access level is what can they do on the machine. So you can say do not allow to transfer files, do not allow to do pretty much anything. So they can only log in and work on the computer. Now, of course, there's a possibility for them to transfer some other information, and you want to maybe make sure that they're liable for it. There's software that we implement called this software, SS Pro, sspro.com, and they're gpsoftdev.com. It's not expensive, it's $30. And this actually restricts access to the internet, or you can block certain sites from accessing. It does screenshot recording on a local level. We have these installed on development machines. So basically, we have TeamViewer installed with limited access so they can't transfer files out of the computer. And then we have SS Pro installed so they can't transfer files out through FTP or some other way that we don't know about. Plus, it has screenshots. Don't forget, they're going to risk their job. Most of the outsourcers that we've dealt with are very honest people. They're not scam artists there to screw you over. But you'd want to close all the loopholes just in case not to have that type of liability. So you can go hardcore with it and implement all these things. For us, we just do TeamViewer for the regular staff. Only the developers get SS Pro. In the past 5 years, I've never had an instance of somebody stealing something. Plus, if you use Shopping Code Elite, you can give them limited access to what they can actually take. So in other words, they can still work on your computer with limited access to the computer, limited access to Shopping Code Elite. I hope that answered your question. If you have a more detailed question about security, just ask me. I'll answer that. Another question is, do you send 1099s for this type of work? So that's the beauty. Anybody who is working overseas, there is no taxes, there's no vacation, there's no anything. It's like a service that you pay to another business if you're looking at it from a domestic point of view, except you're paying overseas and there's nothing. You don't even have to declare it. It's actually written off as an expense. What's cool about this is we pay everybody overseas through a credit card, right? Why do we do that? Because credit card gives us points, right? So let's say we spend $500,000 on payroll over the year. I got 500,000 points, which is about $5,000 if you do the math, but you can use it for flyer miles if you want as well to travel wherever you want. So technically, by us hiring people overseas, not only do we not pay taxes and vacation time and all this other stuff, but we actually get a vacation for the executive team for hiring overseas. Like that's sort of like the reward since you're paying through a credit card. So we pay through PayPal using a credit card, which gives us points. We also started paying because if we pay with a credit card, our staff gets charged fees. So we started doing Western Unions as well because those are no fees to us and no fees to them. It makes them happy because they get the money faster and they don't have to pay any fees. Next question here is Odesk the best place to look? Here is the thing about recruiting. We interview about 100 people before we hire one. Maybe less, maybe 50 people before we hire one. But we go through a lot of people. There is a bunch of systems in place. Like I don't want to start throwing systems at you guys. I mean, if you really want to implement something like that, if there's too many people who want to do it, I'll just create an article about how to do it. But the idea here is you can get lucky and get the first guy that you find on Odesk and he works out. You know those horror stories that you hear like, oh my God, I can't understand the guy, or he's an idiot, or he doesn't do a good job, or he sucks, or I went through 10 people and they all suck. It's very real. If we hired everybody we got, we probably would have experienced the same thing. So there are people on Odesk that will be really good, but a lot of guys might be sort of like the leftovers. So if you end up going through 10 people and they're all not very good, that's probably because you're dealing with the leftovers. You could do Odesk. I'll give you a quick strategy for Odesk if you want to do it yourself. It's going to take some time to do this, which is why I have a dedicated 2 people doing it for me. You want to get a guy who is currently working for someone. The best people, actually, the ones that recently stopped working for someone, and they have a lot of hours billed, like 1,000 hours for the same client. When you see that many hours billed on one client, that tells you something, right? Guys who have these jobs like 10 hours or 5 hours and every client just hires them 5-10 hours, like don't you think that if they were that good that they would just get a permanent job? The reason why they have those little hours is because they're not very good, probably. That's one of the pointers that you can take a look at on Odesk is, does the guy have a stable job, or did he have a stable job before, and why did it end? And those are the guys that you want to hire. Plus, you want to look at their feedbacks and stuff like that. Usually, Odesk has like 10,000 people looking for a job, and if you do your filtering properly, you're going to be left with like 200 candidates on Odesk. Now, Odesk is not the only place we look for people. We have probably 12 different places we look at. We look at LinkedIn, Odesk, we look at some local sites in India, we look at local sites in Philippines, depending who we need. If we need a designer, we go to one site. We have a lot of different places. That's why I have a dedicated person just sitting there full time looking for people. And since we have enough talent coming in and we're not hiring like crazy like we were in 2013, there's a lot of talent that we have that we don't need at the moment. That's why we started offering Hire Once and Forever to our clients, because if we do have the talented workers that we found, we can all benefit from it. We can fund Hire Once and Forever to let it be self-sustained, and you can benefit from finding talent that we found for you. Hopefully that gave you some tips on Odesk. Another question is looking for content creation. Are there language issues? By the way, if you need somebody to write content, I can give you a girl that I personally use whenever I need jobs, and you can just hire her directly. You don't even have to go through us. Content creation is probably the most challenging. I'll be honest with you. Your best bet, now that I'm thinking about it, everybody that I ever found for content creation came from this website, warriorform.com. Somewhere here, you can post a job that you're looking for someone. It's very inexpensive, like $5. All of these are content marketers. Like, these are the guys that do organic SEO for their own sites. So you can usually find it. Now, one thing you want to do is you want to disclose how much you're going to pay. Don't even negotiate. Usually, content writers are like $5 to $10 an hour. You're not going to find cheaper unless you're going to get someone who sucks. Warrior Form is probably where I found most of my guys, but I did have to take them through a writing course. If you need that writing course, let me know. I'll give you a copy of it. I have it on my blog. Just to give you an idea of what I have the writers do, and the girl I can recommend you actually goes through my steps that I gave to her, so that might save you some training time. But I have them write the content, spell check it, then I give them my Grammarly account. I have an account with Grammarly.com. This is probably the best spell checker in the world. I'm not even kidding. I don't have to tell you. You got 1 million people liked it. The best. It's like $130 a year. I can't live without this thing. This is how I get all my articles to be perfect, by the way. If anybody's wondering how do I get my content to be so good when I post it without any mistakes, this is the tool that I use. So the content writer that I hire, write the content, spell check it, make sure that a 6-year-old can understand it, take it through Grammarly, fix every single mistake in Grammarly. I give them my copy of software called naturalreaders.com. They read back the content to you, and I have that content writer, after they finish everything, they post it into the software, and they have the content read back to them to make sure it sounds good. Because a lot of times when you write your own content, you find a lot of mistakes. Do you hire staff for a set amount of hours, or how long it takes them to complete a task? We do both. I'll give you an example. If I have a system in place and I know that it takes me 10 hours to finish it, and I know that I do it fast, so if I did it slow, it would take 20 hours. I would tell them, like, I'll pay you for 20 hours at a time. But if you have a dynamic task, like every time it's different, then you just have to hire them by hourly, and you have to benchmark them yourself. So get a laptop next to you. You can see how they work and see if you're satisfied with it. Make sure the system is in place, and go from there. There's no shortcut to dynamic tasks. If you go through the hiring process for us, is there any form of performance guarantee? We can only guarantee performance if you have a system. In other words, when you create a system, you define what the benchmarks are. Usually we have a manager that overlooks all the staff that gets hired out, which meets with that staff member to come up with a score chart either once a week or even once a day to make sure the benchmarks were met. If you have no benchmarks and you have no system, there's no way we can guarantee anything. But even if you do have a system, we can't really guarantee because how do you have a manager who's overseas controlling a worker who's overseas who just started. It cannot be guaranteed, but we could monitor the benchmarks to make sure that they are met as best as they can be. If you have any more questions, you can post it in the chat. If you don't, let me see if I can give you any more tips. One of the things that I can suggest, two things actually. One of them is for graphic design. I would recommend two people on staff. This is what I would do if I was a retailer. Two people on staff. One is a graphic designer, and technically, if you don't have full-time work for them, you can just negotiate with them to just hire them for 10 hours a week or whatever, or even pay per project. But basically, you need to have a graphic designer who can do like your HTML descriptions and do the call to actions. And then I would get a person that can optimize your website, especially if you're using Shopping Core Lead and you're using the Threat Engagement Analytics, to optimize for engagement. If you were on last week's webinar, I talked about engagement versus sales. You could get one person to see how the engagement can be improved. Usually you need a graphic designer, CSS guy to implement those things for you. You would have that person. So those are the two people that I would recommend, and there's a lot of really talented designers out there. And as far as getting a marketer to do this, if you don't have one in-house and you don't have anybody you work with and you don't really feel like training anybody, I actually have a guy that he's going to be offering his services to Shopping Core Lead clients. I'm training him right now. He's domestic. His profession is email marketing. He's been doing it for 12 years. I convinced him to help our clients do engagement, and he will be offering packages where he could actually monitor your website for engagement and then work with a designer to implement those things. Krista, I know you're on this webinar. I'm actually training him based on your story, so he's going to give me a report on suggestions, and I'll give it to you, a freebie. Because I needed a store to look at anyway, and I figured I'll take a look at yours since I'm doing different setups on it. So as far as X, his name is X, the guy who's going to be doing the engagement, I'll announce about that service whenever he's ready. Actually, we're putting all these services on Shopping Core Lead's website on the very bottom of our footer. Under services, the Oversea staffing is Hire Once and Forever, scraping data, and these three are easy data feed. Social media management is through Hire Once and Forever, and we have it on Shopping Core Lead as our own. We're going to have these two, PPC management and email marketing, soon. The last one is going to be to optimize your website for engagement. That's going to be outsourced to, well, for now, it's going to be one person, but if there's going to be a lot of demand for it, we'll get more people involved. All right, guys, it's 9 o'clock. If you have any questions, feel free to Skype me. If you have any questions on any kind of system building, like if you have a very specific system you want to build, I recommend that you try the course first. There's a link on Hire Once and Forever to the course. Draft something up, and then you can give it to me, and I will give you my opinion. So I'm not going to charge you for an opinion if you want to draft something up and show it to me. And if I have a system to help you, I'll be more than happy to share a system with you so you can implement it yourself. If you are going to draft something up, just do it through Lucidchart, lucidchart.com. You can draft something up there, and I'll review it. All right, have a good night. Thanks.